Welcome to the Sportsline podcast on the CHCH media platform. I'm Bubba O'Neil. It really has been a week long of outstanding conversations that we have had. You know what? And this, I would say, is the most anticipated for me and hopefully for you. From his days at Brebeuf Catholic Secondary School, this big kid had a vision to play in the National Hockey League. But as any former player would tell you, everyone travels a different path to get to the show. With that said, Hamilton's Brian McGrattan will attest sometimes when you reach the top, good or bad choices can be life-altering. Folks, as I love to say, this pod promotes the very best athletes in Southern Ontario. And if you want to rate them on a toughness scale for many reasons, this fella's number one.
St. Patrick's Day. Everybody grab a glass. We're going to have a hoolie at center ice. The elbow pad is off for Scroy. McGrattan waits in very calmly. Scroy stands up. This has been brewing since warm-up. McGrattan leans in with a fake lead, seeing if Scroy will bite. Scroy looks calm, McGrattan calm, and McGrattan leads with a hard right. Oh, they're trading bombs. McGrattan lands some big right. Scroy comes back with a rocket. Oh, Scroy tags McGrattan. McGrattan comes back. Scroy's helmet is off. McGrattan drops Scroy with a hard right.
What a great bout.
That was about 20 years ago now.
Was it that long ago? That was the NHL, the B-sets back in the day with the short sleeve shirts.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's wearing right now.
Roll them right up.
I tell you, Brian, thanks for joining us on the Sportsline podcast.
Thank you.
So great to have you here. People forget, I think, that you were a Hamilton proud kind of guy. So we had to have you on to talk about your life and the things that you're doing, why your life is so wonderful right now. But I got to ask you, first things first, I know everyone calls you the Big Earn.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So it's a name that has stuck with me, honestly, since those days. And Binghamton, and you know, we were on a bus. It was the first month or so on the team, and back when we had the VHS tapes on bus rides, we put the movie Kingpin in, and Big Earn McGrattan came up. Was it Bill Murray came up with the flower ball, and all the guys in the bus pointed at me, Big Earn. So and it just kind of stuck from then. That's over 20 years ago now. So and it has stuck since that day.
I get it, for a guy that had Bubba since grade 11, 57 years old now, and that one never went away. So
there's still some people in my life that won't call me Big Earn. I'm still trying. My mom's one of them, and she refuses to do it. So
right. Well, I get it though, because I'm maybe like yourself, when you hear when someone says, "Hey, Brian," or when I get, "Hey, Clint,"
I'm like, trying to double take. I'm like, what?
Exactly. Right. I usually feels for me like, oh my goodness, I'm in trouble. Someone knows me, and I don't want to talk to this person. Tell you, how's life? And I tell you, when I look at what your career has been like, when it all started back in Hamilton, talk to me about what Brian McGrattan was like as a little kid.
I was a busy kid. Obviously, sports were a big obsession with my life. Obviously, hockey was. I played hockey and lacrosse as a kid. So, in our home, my brother's 2 years younger. He was the same, hockey and lacrosse. Right? We're a big sports family. But since day one, ever since I, first put on the skates, and that's where my obsession of hockey came. At a very young age, I started at DeFasco Park. That's where I started. My dad worked at DeFasco for a very long time, and that's where I started playing. And I just kind of gradually moved up from the younger house league levels in hockey school, and moved over to Lawfield Arena, and then gradually worked my way into the Hamilton Husky /rep system for my minor hockey days.
When you were playing in those days, were you like the big kid then? Like, were you putting the puck in the net? Was that like, what was going on?
It was. Yeah, I mean, my minor hockey days were a little different from my pro days.
Okay, fair.
I had the nice soft hands. I scored a lot. But as the age groups and you start transitioning into different levels, and obviously the junior levels and OHL levels, and then the minor pro levels, right? The kids that were this in minor hockey, the gap slowly goes. Now you're with all the good kids, right? So and you have to discover a role, what fits for you. moved around a little bit when I was younger, kind of up and down in minor league levels and pro levels, and you got to find a role and find what sticks, and how I kind of came into that slash enforcer heavyweight whatever fighting role was, being a bigger guy. I figured I need to stand out a little bit more instead of being with the pack. If I got really good at this, then I'm going to be about here and give myself a little bit more of an opportunity to get there. Those are some decisions you got to make, as you progress in the game if you're good enough to.
Is that like your junior days? Like, I know you played a little junior B in Guelph, and,
I played
and then junior A with a couple of teams as well too. Is that where you start to figure out?
Yeah, that too. Like I played, I left home at 16, and I played up and down with the Guelph Storm that year. So I played, I think 10 or 15 games with the junior B team, 20 or 30 games with the OHL team. We had a very good team that year. We went to the Memorial Cup. So to crack that lineup as a 16-year-old was. I got enough games into on a very good team, but throughout my junior career is junior is kind of a different time for a lot of guys, because you get guys that are extremely good, extremely offensive, then they just can't figure it out later on, and you're like, this guy had 120 points, he's out of hockey 2 years later, because you know what I mean? There's a lot of there's a lot of turnover in junior. There's a lot of good players that there's a lot of good players that get overlooked. Politics are a big thing. It's like, I'm just getting in my little guy's 9 right now, right? So he had his first tryouts this year and all that stuff, and the politics of minor hockey are not even close to what the politics are in minor pro or junior or even the NHL is like minor hockey on steroids when it comes to politics. So you have to deal with all that type of stuff too, and there's going to be the ups and downs of of a career of getting overlooked, getting cut, getting put on waivers, getting cut over and over and over again. It just comes down to to here with a lot of us, right. And I outlasted a lot of my playing class of guys, like I said, 50 goal scorers, 100-point guys, right? I had to adapt into a very different role, a role that was very dangerous. Hard on the body, hard on the mind, hard on everything. But my ultimate goal, my ultimate dream was to play at the highest level, and I was willing to do anything to do that. And I fortunately gave myself a chance to live a dream, play in the best league in the world for almost a decade, and kind of play all over the league too. Like, I got to live in some pretty cool places. Like, I lived in Calgary for a decade. I played in Nashville. My second last year playing, when I was 35 years old, I played in San Diego for a year. My last year playing, I played in England. So, I got to tour around and really use the game to have, a lot of really cool life experiences that will, last a lifetime of memories.
That's fantastic, and I love that. I mean, when you get to the point there, when the LA Kings call your name in the 4th round of the NHL draft, do you was this an emotional thing for you?
Yeah, and I'll never forget. We drove down. So the draft that year was in Boston, and then me, my parents, my brother, we drove down from Hamilton to Boston, and I was rated around there. I think I was rated in the 3rd round, right? So, and that's in North American skaters. That's not including the European guys. So you can kind of go anywhere from there to not getting drafted, right? So, I had a pretty good idea that I would or hope to get drafted, and you hear your name get called, and it's like, holy man, this is like a real thing now. And then getting the opportunity that summer to go to my first development camp, and then the opportunity to go to my first NHL camp at 18 in LA, and that's the starstruck moment of you walk in, they had Rob Blake was on the team, Luc Robitaille. My stall was right beside Stu Grimson, so the Grim Reaper, and the Grim Reaper walks in, and it's funny because he has the nickname of the Grim Reaper, and Stu sits down beside me, and he is one of the most polite and gracious men I have ever met off the ice, and I still know him to this day. We do a handful of charity events throughout the year now, but he stops beside me. "Hi, Brian, nice to meet you, Stu Grimson." Really, and I was like thinking this. I'm watching fight tapes. This guy's a crazy killer on the ice. But and then like I said, you have the opportunity to play with some Hall of Fame. The guys in the Hall of Fame now, Luc Robitaille and Rob Blake, and you have your first scrimmage or on ice practice, and it's hard not to get looking around the ice like, holy, I'm actually on the ice with these guys. I have made it this far.
And you make it as a role of enforcer. And I think people have to recognize that hockey in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, so much different than what we see right now.
Way different.
Completely different. And there was an actual role for you. I guess Brian Burke would say, you have your top 6 and bottom 6. And you fit into the bottom 6, but you had a role. And you did it well.
Yeah, and that role, like you said, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, it's, the game has really transitioned away from that. But at the time I was coming up, that role had a very important part in a team. And sometimes there wasn't one guy, there were 3 guys per team that had that role, right? And, organizations really valued it. Each team always carried a guy, a 2 or a middleweight to ride shotgun with the big guy. And, that's where I kind of eyed my opportunity because, like I said, coming through the, even junior B to tier OHL ranks, you have to do something to stand out. You have to do something to stand out. My skill set was pretty average with the rest of the group. If I didn't add that element to my skill set, what I played in the NHL, I wouldn't have had a career in it. I maybe play a handful of games, maybe. But if I add this, I can add longevity to my career. I can maybe add a decade, and that's what I did. But that role was tough. It wasn't easy. It was very dangerous.
Of course.
I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", 240 pounds, right?
Big fella.
Some of the guys that are fighting were twice the size of me. 6'8". 6'7", 260, 265. Right?
And maybe right? I'm going to ask our director Laura to roll. You and McIntyre, like this here.
So this fight right here.
You guys are huge.
So Steve McIntyre is 2 inches taller than me and about 20 pounds heavier. And this fight here was one of the more important fights of my career. I missed 9 months with a shoulder injury. I had a plate and 2 screws put in my shoulder. So this is my first fight back. And fighting arguably, if Steve McIntyre played a long enough career, I would probably consider him a top 5 enforcer all time.
Wow.
That's how good he was. But this fight was a big moral boost for me because I missed so much time with the shoulder surgery / rehab. Again, but doing this 2 to 3 times a week over the course of a decade was not easy. And the mental training that goes into it, the physical training, obviously in the summertime stuff, guys like me and the Big Mac here would be training sometimes a little different than our teammates. Jeff Joslin's a close friend of mine. Nice. And I've trained a handful of summers with Jeff, personal one-on-one training from anywhere from grappling to a little bit of jiu-jitsu, learning on different grabs and punching and striking. And I'd spend half of my week training with Jeff. And because to become elite and to hang with these guys, you have to, not only the physical strength, it's more the mental strength that has to be kind of second to none on your focus and everything, right?
Well,
so
I look at this here, right, and it amazes me because I could maybe do this like standing on my 2 feet. You're wearing skates, and all the things and balance and all the things that go into what you do there. And I look at guys now and they're hugging each other and stuff, and you guys are standing toe to toe. Like that's, I don't know. Does your mind go to a different place?
Yeah, actually my mind would go to a very quiet place. And funny enough, being in that position, I created such a place that was home for me. And that was a comforting place to me. And I got so mentally strong. I trained really well. Like I was a professional fighter. And And getting in and squaring off and hearing the crowd and stuff really brought me to a calming place, if that even makes sense.
No.
Right? There's 20,000 people around. I don't know how many are watching on TV, but when I got kind of in that pocket and squaring off, I can really dial in, calm down, focus, shut everything out, and go to work.
Now, every once in a while, you have these one-on-one confrontations, and maybe, again, this is why it's so great to get your opinion on these things about the sport of hockey that some just don't understand. And some don't understand because they've never played professional sports at any level, or played sports at all, for that matter, even at the amateur level, and understand the nature of competition. And what sometimes, and we hear the saying, the touch on the shoulder, or, we're going to change the pace of the game, set the tone. These are all phrases. But every once in a while, things get to another level where you got line brawls. And we cannot talk to you without what happened as when you remember the Calgary Flames at the beginning of a game at the opening face-off, like
on Hockey Day in Canada, and you had a couple cupcake games of the Leafs and Canadians in Ottawa and Winnipeg. There were a couple no-hitter games. They were boring. They were awful. And then we were the Saturday night. So going into this game, I'll never forget it. And so we get to Vancouver, and Bob calls us in the office. I think we were on a 7 or 8 game losing streak. And we played in San Jose. I'm not sure if it was the night before this, but it was the game before. And our line had 2 goals. Like, being the fourth line, if you put in 2 goals, that's, you're not only doing your job, that's extremely good, right? Because of the ice time and all that stuff. You're playing between 6 to 10 minutes a night, maybe. And, Bob pulled us in and said, you guys had a great game in San Jose tonight. You guys are working. We're not winning. He's like, nobody in that room deserves to start. You guys haven't started a game all year. He goes, you're going to start a game tonight. Right? And I see Torts kind of losing his mind on TV here, but, after Bob left the office, I pulled it's just a little small coaching office in the Vancouver dressing room. I just got everybody to stand, and I said, boys, let's just go out there and fight them. Who cares if no difference between losing 8 or 9. Let's go out there and fight them, and we're going to pound them and really set the tone here with these guys. Because, when I played for the Flames, the big rivalry has always been Edmonton and Calgary, but we hate these guys just as much more. Like, they're arrogant. And their fan base was arrogant, and we had just as much of a hate for Vancouver as we did for Edmonton at the time, and Edmonton wasn't very good. They're not what they are now. They're last place, right? So some of those games, but these guys always had good teams, right? And we kind of, I'm like, I fought Tom Sestito every game. So I'm like, boys, I got Tom Sestito. And then we kind of went through kind of picking who was going to fight who. And I'm like, the goalies, you guys, you can do whatever you want. If you want to go down and skate, fight him. And, the draw happens, and the ref really didn't know what to do. And Kevin Bietska and I grew up together. Like, we grew up from Grimsby. Like, we playing hockey together when we were like 9 or 10 years old, right? I've known him my whole life. And, Westy takes the draw, and he's holding his stick like a golf club, and Bietska's coming in and out, and the ref didn't know what to do. Then he drops the puck, and obviously the big brawl starts, right? So all the fighting finishes, and there's gloves everywhere, and the ref comes to the box, and because my gloves technically hit the ice first, I was the first fight. So everybody else was a secondary fight. So all the other 10 guys, I orchestrated the whole thing. I get to stay in the game. So all that happens. Everybody gets kicked out, and Torts is losing his absolute mind on the bench. And
he wanted to fight Hartley.
Oh, he was going nuts. And right at the end of the period, Shane O'Brien was the first guy. I was the second guy off the ice, and the coaches were in front of us, and I'm just about to go in the room, and I felt a nudge. And Torch isn't a big guy, right? He's just a little guy, right? And he's screaming, "I'm going to kill you, Bob. You're dead. I'm going to kill you." And I was like, hey, get out of here. So I stiff-armed him into the hallway, and the glove dryers were there with the big prongs and everything. I'm pushing him into those. The assistant coaches are trying to get down the hallway. The security's there. our teams there, the door, there's a doorway halfway in the hallway that goes to the Canucks medical room. All you see is the door open, and I think Bietska and the other couple guys were yelling at guys in the thing, and I was looking up at the roof, or looking in the thing, because I'm like, there's got to be a camera here. Because the thing goes, like, maybe we should all just start fighting in the hallway. and my mind was like, okay, I really want to do this, but there's got to be a camera somewhere. And I kept looking down the hallways and didn't see the camera. Anyways, nothing happened in the hallway. Thank God it didn't, because the camera was on the roof.
That's right. There's the overhead shot.
And the only time they put that camera on the roof, I don't know if it's changed. This is when I was playing. This is 10 years ago. But the only time that camera was in the hallway on the roof is for Hockey Night in Canada. So had that have been a Thursday night game, that camera would not have been there. I don't think it would have been caught. But I behaved myself in the hallway, and I just kind of broke everything up and behaved myself, and thank God I did.
I need to go off script here. I have to ask you this question. If you don't want to answer it, please say sorry, Bubs. I got to be fair too. What's John Tortorella like?
You know what? Now you know what? I have known a lot of guys that have played for him. I've played against him my whole career. He was a coach, he was in New York. He was in Vancouver. Played against him my whole career. I think I would love to play for a guy like John Tortorella. I think I would love to. I think the way he demands hard work. I think you saw it with someone. He sat as captain this year, right? You're not accountable, and if you don't play along the way the team's playing, and you're not committed to the team structure and the team atmosphere and the work ethic and all the stuff that the team abides by, and you don't play. He sat as captain this year. That's the way it should be. And I was a guy that prided myself on work. I worked my entire life to get to the NHL. And there's nothing worse than when you play for coaches that just keep playing the same guys and this and that. And, the easy pick will sit the fourth line guys. They're the guys that grind every day, work, no problem with attitude. We show up to practice every day. So I think I would really love to play for a guy like John Tortorella. And, to be... I'm still pretty involved with the NHL, so I at some time I'm going to see John Tortorella in passing. I'm going to walk up and give him a big hug.
I love it. He's such a character, but I can see why some guys, as a player, would want to knock him out.
I think I would love to play for him.
And some guys would want to play for him. He's certainly old school. Again, so you establish yourself in the National Hockey League. You're doing your thing. You're playing, every night or not some nights, and when maybe there's a requirement for you to play, depending on the opposition, you're playing. Whether that was with the Senators, which were a real good team, as you said, the Flames weren't so good of a team. You played for Nashville as well too. A lot's going on in your life. But then some things change personally within you. Yeah. Can you describe I don't know if went wrong is the right thing to say.
Yeah.
But what happened?
Yeah. Just throughout my career and throughout my life, I battled substance abuse for a large portion of my adult life into my career. And, it was a personal battle. I would say it could be a lifelong battle, right? And those of us who struggle either with mental health or addiction, we don't really see a way out at the time. And the struggle for me was always playing, at a top tier level. If I say anything, what are people going to think about me? If I come out and want to get help, what's the general public or my team going to think of me, my GM? Because at the time, we never had player development, never had any kind of mental health departments in organization, which they do now, and in all sports. We never had that. If I was going through something, or when I was going through something, the two outlets for me was a coach and a GM. So I'm not going to approach if I have a drinking problem or a substance abuse problem. I'm going to go sit with a GM and tell him that. I'm going to put my thought goes, my career could be in jeopardy here just because of the mindset at the time. The landscape has really changed in sports over the last handful of years
Thank
towards
goodness.
mental health, right? So, and starting playing pro at a young age at 20, right? Drinking was very prevalent in the culture that I came up in. It's very different now, but it was a big part of the culture. And, just it goes from being one of the boys and fitting in to, sometimes trying to be the life of the party, so you're fitting in a little bit more. And I loved to go out and have fun and all that stuff and fun with my teammates. But at the end of the day, drinking and drugs were also an escape for me of this place where I can escape, what's going on around me. And that escape became a very dark place, very, very dark place, as it does for a lot of us who are like me. And that escape, at the end of the day, could kill us. And I went through some very, very tough times. And at the end of the day, I was playing in Phoenix in 2008 and came to the decision after a week-long bender that I needed help and I needed to go to a treatment center. And the first call I made was to my mom, second one was to my agent on how to get me to the facility the quickest they can, because I need to straighten my life out. I need to kind of figure out who I was as a person, and go on the path of healing. And that started in 2008 is when I quit drinking, and the day-to-day work and the day-to-day mindset kind of has not changed since that date. Lots of ups and downs in life, and since that day, but the same, the focus and the mindset and the openness to healing and different ways of healing. I'm always interested in trying to find ways to make myself better.
Congratulations, bud.
Yeah, thank you.
Because it takes a big man or a big woman or a big individual, however you want to put it, to say, I need help. I need some guidance. I can't do this on my own.
And some of us will die. Those are the 3 hardest words will ever say. I need help. And
did anyone know what you were going through?
I think on the outside, and we get so defensive too, right? Of if it was my parents or close friends or my brother, someone really, hey man, like, are you okay? Like, are you? And we get so backs up against, you leave me alone, mind your own business, get out of here, I'm fine. And so I really, at the end, yeah, it was, yeah. But until you make the decision, and it has to come from you, people can't do it for you. The will and the desire, as hard as it may be to find it in there when you're in such a place of deep pain, you got to find it, because nobody else can do it for you. Nobody else can do that path or this path for you. You got to find it yourself, and you got to, dig deep and go to those places, go to those deep, dark places that we are so afraid to go, to find yourself. And there's such a beautiful life out there day to day, such a beautiful life, but you got to be willing to go to the dark to find it.
Your mom and dad have to be so happy that you turned the corner. Yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of people in your life,
yeah,
but your mom and dad who've seen it from the very beginning.
And they were a big part of everything. They were a big part of my journey to obviously make it to the NHL. They are a big part of my healing journey. They've been through every single second of it. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that core group, support group that I have. And there's not many people in it, but those 2 are. And they've been through with me through some very, very, and since then have been through with me through some very tough times, because, just because we go to any kind of facility to get our life better and to get our life on track, that doesn't mean life is all of a sudden going to be the easiest it's going to be for the rest of your life. No, there's ups and downs, and life has not been easy since that day. But life isn't easy for everybody. We all have our own stuff. We all have our own battles, our own inner battles, and stuff. And it's how you get up every day and work and have the right mindset to go on and challenge yourself daily. I like to challenge myself daily with new things, and like I said, I become obsessed with different ways to holistic healing. I've become a massive yogi, and a guy that has close to 300 career fights and was a bloodthirsty maniac for a large portion of my 20s to become so and I've just been so indulged in the yoga culture, and what it has done for my life it's been remarkable.
The best part, I think, here in this story, Brian, and there's just so many ups and downs. As you said, we all do have these ups and downs. But I think the best part when I hear you speak is the fact that you are not afraid to want to talk about getting there. And two, you're willing to share your experiences with others who were maybe in the same position you were in. And because you were able to do this, people and hockey players, people in the National Hockey League, just like you, at that stage of your life, have someone to talk to.
Yeah, it's the most important part of sobriety or on the path of healing is to spread that gift and to spread it and pass it on to the next person that's struggling. And those of us that can give back, I take a lot of pride in that. I take a lot of pride, and it's not necessarily just athletes or pro athletes. When I get approached by people, I'm more than willing to help and share my story, and if my experiences can kind of help you and ignite you to make your life better, then that's what it's all about.
It's fabulous. A couple of people I want to show you. I do a little picture time every once in a while. I want to throw up this picture of these two guys that maybe you shared.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about these two fellas.
Yeah, those are my two best buddies from Ottawa, and we played in the minors together. We got close to a Stanley Cup in Ottawa and didn't quite get it done. But yeah, when we cracked that Sens lineup together and coming out of that lockout season in 2005, and yeah.
Doesn't at least seem like he was just like the laugh.
Oh yeah, he still got it.
He still got it, eh?
Yeah, and doing a great job going on with Kyle to Pittsburgh, and obviously we lost Ray a couple years ago, and that was tough for everybody. But as a friend and a local Hamilton guy, and another guy that could throw him just as good as me.
Ray was like,
yeah.
Ray, like I mean, he used to have
and
like.
If it wasn't for that goalie gear. I think he'd be a top 10 heavyweight in the league. If he didn't have the goalie pads and all that big stuff, he wouldn't be able to move. If he put him in player gear, because he could fight. We always said it. He loved it. There was a couple minor league tilts that he got in toe to toe, and like if you watch hockey, when guys get close to the goalie, everybody jumps in to kind of protect the goalie. Ray was the only guy. Whenever the guy jumped in, everybody just back off. He's good.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what Martin Biron probably thought too.
Yeah.
You remember that? Well, were you on that? Were you?
I was not playing that game, so I played, and I was hurt, so I did not play in that game, and that's when that happened. And then the next home game we played them like 2 weeks at home. 2 weeks later at home. Yeah, so that was another.
Yeah, I think that Peters,
another fun-filled night.
Peters got filled that night pretty good. I remember. You mean? Oh, and what about this person? This lady who sat in this seat right here before. What is she all about? What has she meant to you?
She we met. Natalie is my girlfriend, and we met in April. And it's been a handful of months now, and she's amazing. She is a spark to my life. Such a positive influence in the community here too, with all the community work that she does and all the work she does in the area. Big presence on the CH here for a long time, and I feel truly blessed to have such a wonderful person in my life.
Well, I see her obviously at the Ticats games, and I'm the pre-game and post-game host, and she comes on the broadcast, and I called her the Tiger Cats queen of fun and fashion, and she is something else and has embraced that, and it amazes me, and I've told her before too that the fact that she can grab a microphone and sit there and talk to 25,000 people and get them all charged up. I could never do this.
All game.
All game.
No, I couldn't do it either.
I couldn't do it. I sit there, I've done TV.
Well, I could do it. I can go fight someone in the middle of the field for everybody. That's about all I could do.
Well, speaking of doing something on the field, I need to understand what you are doing here in Calgary here one day with what is this all about?
Okay, so I raced this guy. Look at this guy. So I raced this guy twice. So Matt Stajan and I'm Matt Stage. Stage played for the Leafs for half his career. So Stage and I go to a Stamps game.
Okay.
And part of their halftime show is this cow races. And they just pick someone from the stands, right? And the cow attack, and the cow just killed the guy, like half a field. And the Stamps and Flames are part of the same ownership.
That's right.
So they'll have the same social media team. And I just message, I go at Calgary Stampeders, I want the cow, right? That's all I put on Twitter. This back, and when I go, I want the cow, and then the social team reached out to me like, do you really want it? We can set it up. I'm like, yeah, I want to race the cow. The first time we did it, they gave me like a 10-yard head start. That's why I kind of a bit of ahead of them. And then I raced him again. We raced from the goal line together, and he just beat me, but he's fast.
Yeah, I was going to say, because they call him the world's fastest cow.
The world's fastest cow, and we were crying like, I want the cow, and then all the fans started retweeting it, then the social media team, and then we did even like a press conference and stuff. And so that's how that happened.
I'll tell you, Brian, going through video of you, and of course know what I'm going to find for the most part, and then I found that gem, and I said, I can't have this guy come on the podcast and not ask him about racing the fastest cow in the world.
Yeah.
It's spectacular.
Many people have raced the cow.
Not many people, and I never will either, too. So, oh my goodness gracious. And one last thing here, too. One of the things that I think, we share this, too. You found some peace in fishing.
Yeah.
Like fishing. This is and something, you can do your whole life.
It's amazing. And a big part of the culture out west is fly fishing. Mm-hmm. So I've always loved fishing growing up as a kid in the area here, and all the lakes up north for bass fishing and pike and pickerel and all that stuff. And I got introduced to fly fishing just over 10 years ago when I was playing for the Flames. Just went out on a guided tour and kind of got hooked right away. And it's such a very unique, cool way of fishing too, right? And you have all the mountain streams out west, and there's there's a million rivers out there, all a bunch of different species of fish you can catch. So I got really dialed into that, and it was a lot of fun. But on the flip side of that, like you said, it brought a lot of peace, brought a lot of inner peace, and being in the middle of the Rocky Mountains on a Wednesday afternoon, and it's just you and crystal clear water, and you might look up and there might be some mountain sheep on the thing. You might look over here, there could be a herd of elk, and just being able to be in that kind of whenever I wanted to was a very healing and obviously mystical experiences sometimes too, of being able to have that an hour from my front door. And but yeah, I love it.
You get to share it with your son?
Yes, yeah, I do. I actually took him. We went quite a few. He wouldn't remember. He was only 3-4 years old, but I took him last about a week ago. We were out in Turkey Point area, so we just did some dock fishing, and Gabe was whaling on the sunfish and just loved it. Yeah,
tell you, that's good times, a good family moments. Hey, Brian, this is it's been an honor. And
thank you.
And I really appreciate you opening up. There are people that will be listening to this podcast, and I really hope it helps them or entertains them or lets them know a little bit about the enforcer role in hockey and the good old days of hockey.
The good old days.
And I'll tell you have, I mean, as I said to you when you walked into CHCH, I don't even know if you'd remember me, but a bunch of times when the Ascends came into Toronto and I was working at Sportsnet and putting a mic in front of you because maybe there was going to be some action, maybe you and Colton Orr were going to square off, and there was always
we could fight for the 30th time.
Exactly. You know, and we would interview you too, and I always thought to myself, this guy, and of course you're wearing skates during the interview, this guy is massive, this guy is huge, but then thinking, what a gentle giant this man is. You know, and what a class fella you really have been, and really we can see here on this podcast. So congratulations on your journey.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us on the Sportsline podcast.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's the Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports, especially with local guys that made it well. If you do know of an athlete or team to promote the Sportsline podcast, do want to hear from you. Please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you do have something to say, please comment. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you next week.